Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts Daniel Quinn and Courtney Staples. On today's episode, we finish off our series in musical world, Wild West space musical world. Again, I always recommend that you listen to the first part of the series before trying to jump into the second part. You'll be very, very confused. But a big shout out to our longtime listener and patron Jay for submitting this week's prompt. Always good to hear from you. And remember that if you want us to build your world, like we're doing with Jay's, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com. Click on the link, follow the instructions, and in no time, you'll be hearing us building your world live on the podcast. It's not live. You get what I'm talking about. If you want to follow us on social media, we're over on Twitter at Let's World Build. If you want to come join our Discord and chat with us about what your favorite musical is, perhaps, you can always go to our link in the description. And if you're feeling particularly generous or you just want those sweet patron-only episodes, you can go to our Patreon with the link in the description and give us money there. Enough of the shilling. Let's get into the episode. Now, last we left off, we had a twist and we have to reconcile it this episode. That twist was someone is manipulating everything from behind the scenes and it's not who you expect. So we've got the twist. We've got our musical world with beautiful resonance, space themes, Western vibes. What are we looking at getting into today? Daniel, why don't you start us off with your reconciliation of the twist?
I think the expectation, what we would expect to be people pulling the strings behind the scenes would obviously either be the aliens or the music producers, right?
I agree.
So
Yep.
I think if we want to go with the unexpected, we might want to think about some small timers. So perhaps like, some podunk, Wild West type characters who have stumbled upon either some secret or technology and are really behind everything, or some small time criminal, boss who maybe finagles his way into whatever the adventuring party is kind of as a dope, but really he's planning on screwing them over. And so, perhaps there's a villain who's apparent, like perhaps like a music producer who seems bad, or somebody from the inner rim, right, who's part of their group and they don't trust. Whereas like the gap-toothed yokel is really the one who has the real power behind the situation.
It is a long-standing rule that I have in my life, never to trust the gap-toothed yokel. But only if they self-identify as a yokel. I just want to put that out there.
like the soft-spoken kind of seemingly unintelligent backwater type who actually is cleverer than you think.
Yeah, I took a very different approach to this, but before I get into my spiel, Courtney, how did you approach it?
So I was thinking that maybe the discovery of the tuning fork station on the outskirts wasn't a truly organic thing, but there's actually been someone there who had found it years before and got stuck there and has been sending out signals for help, which is what lured others in. But they've been out there for so long, alone. Maybe they've even been avoiding the alien influences. They might have kind of lost it a bit mentally. They're essentially like haunting the place and guiding people around it in a certain way by like creating obstacles and making certain areas more unsafe and other areas easier to get through.
They're almost like guiding people to certain regions within the abandoned tuning fork, right? We really needed to come up with names for these stations, I realize, but it's way too late now. Okay. I like the directions y'all took it in, and there's definitely some overlap with my kind of thinking. Daniel, like you, I didn't have a yokel in mind, but I agree. I thought that the aliens and the record producers were the obvious choices, behind those who were behind it. Wow, I sound dumb. Anyway,
makes sense.
And I had this idea that there is a very famous musician from like the Upper Rim who is actually well known and well liked by many people, and he's actually the one or they are actually the one who are responsible for this mass exodus towards the abandoned station. And it's because the alien essence, the bad note that is in him after he took the record deal, still longs for their missing partner over on that station. And for some reason, he doesn't understand he is the one who's manipulating everything by being a taste banker, by being the popular one behind, like, hey, I'm going to go set this trend by going out to this place. And he's or they've been kind of the one who's been like, all right, cool, I'm going to be the one to do it. And as a result, has started this trend of or this mass exodus out to this abandoned tuning fork. So how do we take these three ideas and blend them together in some kind of a seamless way? Like, what works, what doesn't, what can we kind of make work?
I think they can fit together pretty easily. They seem to be puzzle pieces that are fittable. You could fit them. You just have to shape a few things. I think. Well, we've got three. So we got three powers. We've got something hidden in the destination that's calling people. Right.
Yeah.
We have a man who, not necessarily through his full awareness, is the instrument of the exodus. Right. And we have someone with malicious intent who is among the travelers who also is actively wielding a power against them. So
right,
I don't have the answers, but I'm trying to set those are the three pieces we have together. And I think the way it seems to me is probably the real power is the one hidden in the destination, because it might be the one that's influencing the man who is exhibiting the powers that pull people into the exodus. But I wonder then if the man in the middle, the yokel, is somehow harnessing whatever the entity in the destination is using, or can harness it in a weaponized sort of way in the end.
I like the kind of triumvirate that we have going on here. I think that the real thread that I see is the lover on the abandoned station is that kind of guiding force that Courtney was suggesting. And then we've got to figure out that devious yokel. I don't know why I'm thinking of him as like a prospector, but in my head, that's what he looks like. You know,
he seems like he's after money. I think. I don't think he cares about any of this mysticism.
It's kind of funny because I was actually, for whatever reason, picturing them, and I know this doesn't quite fit the yokel thing, but as like a school marm type.
Oh,
like a very
that can work.
a very like innocuous, like nobody would ever suspect this person of being bad, and just kind of like they're sort of like bumbling and
like an evil Miss Doubtfire. I can go for that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but less funny though.
Well, I mean, maybe that's their scheme, you know.
Wait, to get their children back from the divorce?
I mean, I guess we have to figure out, like, how does, setting aside the yokel for a minute, like, how does the dynamic work with this trapped lover, and how they're influencing the Inner Rim character, and what's the danger there?
I think that what I'm kind of seeing this as is that Courtney's entity is the one who's calling, is beckoning.
And they're maybe alien, right?
I'm sorry?
And I assume they're like an alien of some sort.
Potentially. Let's put that on the back burner, right? And the reason that they're beckoning is because this individual who has inhabited this very popular, famous musician over on the known, the inhabited tuning fork is they're like, I don't know why I have this feeling, but the only way that I think I can expand my music and expand the art and get out of this station is by exploring. And they're kind of an unwitting reason why this happens. I'm not sure how I feel about unwitting, considering they're supposed to be a mastermind, but I think that what we can do is use Courtney and I's thread as like kind of like the reasoning, and then the true mastermind is Daniel's yokel that we're talking about here. I think that might be the best way to do things. And perhaps the yokel is somehow behind both the entity and the musician at the same time. I don't know how we're going to get there. That's kind of the fun of this podcast, is figuring out how we make these narrative threads come together.
When I say unwitting, what I mean is, like, I think this character knows about how that they have this influence and this musical power, and they're deliberately going there. But I don't know if they realize that that the thing that's calling to them is in love with whatever power they possess. Like, because I'm assuming this person is possessed of another influence from the inner rim, right? They're just not aware of it being an entity. Is that the case?
Or Rob, could you like restate your guy?
Sure. So there is basically a very popular musician who has taken in one of the last episode. We talked about how producers offer these alien spirits as ways to gain supernatural singing and musicianship, right? So it's one of those people from the upper rim. It's one of the established musicians. They're actually popular both among both because for some reason they have mass appeal between both parties. This person has this yearning. You know, I'm thinking this is the scene in a musical where they're looking out a window longingly, right? Looking for their future, looking for what's to come. They're dissatisfied with the career that they have, even though they're at the top. And so they feel this longing towards this station that they're justifying as trying to expand into a more creative field. In reality, what I think is happening is this musician, like the bad note that's within them, that's giving them the supernatural power, is the other half of Courtney's spirit that is calling people to the abandoned station.
That's what I mean by unwitting. Like, they're not aware that it's this other half that's calling them. So
right.
And on the other side, we have this thing cloaked in mystery that's calling to this person.
Right. Well, it's not calling to the person; it's calling to the thing within the person.
Yeah, the alien. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
To clarify, I had been thinking that my guy was like just a guy who has kind of gone a little nuts over the past however many years he's been alone out there.
Could they be possessed too then? Like, maybe they arrived there on an exploration mission and they've been trapped there and then got possessed?
Maybe. Or like maybe they've mostly avoided the aliens, but maybe there was one that offered him like like, I'll help you contact your people if you just let me in a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe it's something like that.
That would work, because then it solidifies the relationship with the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the one that's in Courtney's regular guy is also just the first one that's like, hey, you look like you're in trouble. Don't listen to those other alien notes. I'll protect you from them. You know, maybe it's that type of situation.
Okay, I think I got it then.
Okay. What do we got?
Then. So
tell me about your yokel school marm here, Daniel.
I've got it. So the person that went to the Outer Rim fork was part of an expeditionary crew in some way, like, because they got there ahead of time, right? That person knows the school marm. Perhaps they're part of the same organization, right? And they originally had some kind of commercial intent in doing this. Person B has been lost, is in the Outer Rim, is now interacting with this alien, is summoning the Inner Rim. But School Marm, who is in charge of this organization or is in some way, deeply connected to this other person that's trapped there, realizes that they can capitalize on this power if the two halves are connected, like on this note. So they act as a not a tour guide, but as a guide to get to the Outer Rim for rich, famous musician who they know is one half of the total. If they can get them together, then they can capitalize, maybe capture or use them in some way. And they're expecting, the lover who is working with the alien to cooperate with them. But that's where they make a mistake, because now this person's gone mad. So when they finally do link up, things are going to be not what they expected.
Interesting. I like that. I think that could work well.
I would like a little bit more motivation behind, because this is like a pretty big thing. Besides just being a courier for the famous musician, I feel like they need something else out of this transaction.
They want
something that will
the
make them
from the two of them united.
Oh, so they're going to try and steal that power for themselves.
And they're bringing them together deliberately to seal whatever happens, whatever musical magic happens when they're combined.
And then they're there to snatch that moment and that energy. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I feel a lot better about that now for sure.
Because they know that because of the expedition they did earlier with their other half or their co-conspirator, they know something vital is there, but they lost their co-conspirator. So it's a matter of like finishing the mission, you know.
Can we go a step further and have that schoolmarm be responsible for abandoning Courtney's character in the first place?
Like they saw that there was going to be danger, so they like booked it out of there and just abandoned this other person.
If that was enmity between them, which would be great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If I could, and then from like kind of a narrative perspective, if we're following that character, we won't know why that abandoned person hates the schoolmarm so much, right?
There'll be tension, also like on the ship, and it's all like undergirded. Once they get there, you don't get it, you know?
Exactly. And then, of course, if I would like to make my weekly, the podcast, not just mine, but the podcast's weekly reference to the 1999 Brendan Fraser classic, The Mummy, this character is essentially the Benny to Brendan Fraser's oh my God, I want to call him Jack, but I know that's not his name. Anyway, we're moving on.
I don't remember that character.
You know, yeah, you do. So Benny steals every scene that he's in. He's like the guy
who like Weasley guy.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
You would know him instantly if you saw him again. He's the one when the mummy comes and he takes out his entire like Mr. T's worth of medallions that are all different religions. Oh, it's great. By the way, if you're longtime listeners of this podcast and you haven't seen the Mummy, you gotta. It's required reading for the podcast at this point. We've referenced it since like episode 3, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I love this. I'm also thinking when we're looking at like character archetypes, I'm seeing the schoolmarm almost as like a Janet from Rocky Horror Picture Show, you know, like just very straight laced, and then maybe she gets opened up by some like kind of magical power towards the end, or like the power of song and love. Who knows?
Because I forgot this is a musical.
I mean, it's not strictly a musical, but there's a lot of music going on, so I think that, you know, like that's going to be pretty fun. Okay, we've added this level of ridiculous, like, oh man, this is just a fun thing that we got going on here. I really appreciate it. So are we ready to move into our factions?
I think so.
Excellent. Daniel, I made you go first last time, which means that I'm going to go first this time. Fake out, Courtney. Gotcha. My faction is like really inconsequential, and I want it to be that way. I just want this certain aesthetic somewhere on the empty tuning fork station, because I saw this in my brain and I'm like, hell yes, this is so dumb. I love it. I want an entire group of space greasers / rockabillys. So they're like driving space muscle cars or space motorcycles, and they've got the big like pompadour hair and like the jackets, and like that's the aesthetic that I want. Again, I'm invoking Grease a little bit here because you know, why not? They've got a flying car in that movie, why not have it in the space station? But that's what I want to evoke. I literally have no other ideas for them outside of like, they're a faction on this station. I don't care what they do. They're just there. If you want to prescribe meaning to them, cool. That's basically where my brain stopped. I'm like, no, that's good. That's a complete thought right there. So what do we think about space greasers?
I'm a fan. I'm wondering how we can like Westernify them in a bit, like give them some flair that you would see in like a tropey Western movie.
They seem to be like gangsters of some sort, like territorial.
Yeah.
So I wonder if in the Wild West you kind of have gangs of a kind.
You have
right?
posses.
They
For
haunt
sure.
either they haunt towns or they're following a certain leader who's very influential.
Oh yeah.
So I wonder,
Okay.
they may either be an obstacle if in our proposed twist adventure, or they may be kind of a way of getting through a dangerous space because they populate the area. Or, I mean, along the way, in the Outer Rim, there might be fragments of them that you need help. You got to deal with them in order to get where you need to go.
Yeah, I could see that.
Are they taking the traditional place of a bandito in this particular setting?
I think so, right? Instead of horses, they have these hogs, right? Like these space
they have space motorcycles, of course. Yeah. And I mean, if we're going Bon Jovi with it, that's a steel horse on which they ride, of course.
Yeah.
And Daniel, I was definitely picturing lots of finger snapping.
Dancing.
Oh, see, now we're getting into West Side Story, which I'm also cool with. Yeah.
Dance-offs.
Oh, of course.
I'm picturing somebody, a group wandering through the station, and all of a sudden on the far off, they start hearing snaps of fingers and oh no.
Yes.
No.
Oh no.
Oh, man. I feel like that's a universal fear, and it's not just the kind of space greasers they were dealing with here. It's like, if you're snapping, you know that shit's about to go down. You know what it is? Snapping is this setting's equivalent of hearing spurs. That's what it, like in Westerns, you hear somebody walking and it's like the spur. It's just snapping. That's what it is.
Love it.
Okay. One other thing, this is just an idea that I had. I didn't really have any anywhere to place it necessarily, but I thought it'd be really cool if there were. I think it's slight semi-related to the kind of space greaser that I had in mind, but it's this idea that there are people who have tattoos, full sleeves of tattoos that play music for them. So maybe they're singers or dancers and stuff like that, and they don't really have music, so they have these, I think I'm going to just say nano machines, because that's basically the sci-fi equivalent of magic, where they have these animated tattoos that maybe it's a band and they're playing the music and it's coming from the tattoo itself. I just thought it was a fun little flavorful twist or bit that we can toss in.
They should definitely have those. They're little snapper guys.
Oh, definitely. Right.
Yeah. Or jackets with really tall collars, and in the collars are machines that produce music. Yeah.
That's good too.
And they can probably blast people with it,
And isn't it kind of a thing where it's all these the motorcycle gangs have their own leather jacket with their own emblem on the back too? So maybe that's where the music comes from as well, and it denotes what kind of music they're into, because it doesn't all have to be rockabilly. We can get kind of different genres in there as well. Yeah. Okay. All right, I tossed out my space greasers. Courtney, what do you have for our faction today?
So I was thinking about Western tropes, and of course one of the big ones is the standoff. We've got two guys staring each other down, and there's tense music. And I thought, what if the music is actually being played live as a way to make sure that the duel happens in a legit way? Something they provide the sanctity of the standoff, creating a field of energy or something that keeps the duelists from dealing lethal damage to each other and from hurting bystanders. So if a guy strolls into town and is demanding a duel without that kind of band, people are oh shit, this guy's real bad. Everybody get off the streets, plug your ears. Shit's gonna go down.
That's good. Yeah. So in movies and stuff like that, that's called diegetic and non-diegetic music. So are these people who provide these kind of energy fields, are they called diegeticists or something like that?
They're cinematographers, almost sonic cinematographers,
composers even. Yeah,
they're clerics is what they are.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
but not in a Healy way, but in they're kind of arbiters and judges.
Yeah,
sanctification.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Music. What do they? How would I visualize them as individuals?
Good question.
I'm seeing them as a small band that I'm thinking maybe every saloon has one, or every kind of town outpost type thing would have one, where when when they hear somebody challenge somebody else to a duel, they just like come rushing over with like with chairs and stuff, with stools. They sit down and like get ready to play, and it's like probably like a fiddler and a guitarist and like just a variety of people who can whip out those like classic
I imagine
Western
it differs
tunes.
from town to town, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But it seems like they're kind of like not flashy then. Like they're more like
yeah, they're like background kind of musicians. Yeah.
Ooh.
There's a class element to it. It seems like you wouldn't see these. I mean, maybe there's a different version of these guys in the Inner Rim where you've got fanciness, where they're like overdressed and ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Where I'm picturing guys in like a dirty shirt with a missing button, you know, who have a old straw hat, and they are dressed simply because that's part of how they present themselves.
I think having visual distinctions between each town is a great way to visually and like kind of like mini world build. Like, you know what that town's priorities are based on what their diegeticists look like. And to me, when you said that they had their own like little like stools that they bring out on their own, I was also thinking that why can't they just like move as a single unit? Like they have like a bandstand where it's like 3 or 4 people, and it's like a robot leg type situation where it's like, oh boy, it's coming. So they all sit in the bandstand, and it like walks them over to that particular area.
I like that image. That's a good one. Yeah.
You know, I just realized as well, these are basic. So they're arbiters of the rules. They blend into the or they're supposed to blend into the background, and they have like maybe some kind of drab or dress. They're basically referees from like professional wrestling. Is what
essentially,
I'm looking at.
Yeah. Like I could see like the field that they make. It's like it probably has some visual that might be even similar to like a wrestling ring that it forms around them.
Oh, if we were to have this be like individualized as also you're like, Courtney, I mean, my heart is just like, yes, please. That's what I wanted all along. I'm also thinking like, if this is like a battle between musicians, this is also the backup band as well. It's not just like they're providing just the baseline music. It's like, no, they're providing backup to whatever the person is playing at the time. So they maybe having to switch between 2 very different styles is kind of part of their. So realistically, they might be some of the most talented musicians in the entire setting. But because they're like not really looking for that, they're just like, yeah, no, it's fine. You guys are looking for your own thing, you know.
I mean, there's an element of humility. I think that's the same for this faction, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of goes in line with clerical duties almost.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying, and I do like the idea of them existing in like the Inner Rim or the Upper Rim, whatever, but as like these really snooty like. Wearing like tuxes with like poofy sleeves and like
yeah it's the same. They look like the from the movie Titanic. They look like the people who are playing the like that's what's going on. And then once you go out to the other places, they look very, very different. And I love that little added visual flair that you can basically be like, hey, what is this town's, you know, what do this town's diegeticists look like? And then you can describe them, and you like get so much information based on that alone, you know? Oh man. Okay. Really, really fun so far. Loving these ideas. Daniel, bring us home. What is your faction all about?
So I was thinking of the trope of the sheriff, but I want an evil sheriff. So I've imagined these people from the Inner Rim who I just gave them like a name, Symphonist, but they could be called whatever. And so they're kind of like of the same molds. They have a uniform. They are like creepy, thin, bald, you know, sunglasses of some sort. Maybe a badge that's very apparent. But what's weird about them is that they're like part of a secret group within the Inner Rim that's about collecting either music notes or bad notes or whatever. They're tied to finding out more information about the alien stuff going on. But what they do is they're not like human. They're transmitted by music. So when they need to go investigate something, their co-conspirators in that location play a certain type of music which hyperspaces them into existence. And I don't know whether that's they are literally moved from point A to point B, or whether they possess the player. but the idea is that they're creepy and that when they show up, because of the mannerisms of the person or because of how they look. And so
That's
you can have
great.
those scenes of like they're, like kind of like in the latest Mandalorian, which they did a really great job, I think, presenting that visually as a Western concept of like the blue alien guy. I think it's Cad Bane or something, whatever he is.
Yep, that's correct.
Like showing up, walking in the classic Western style in the middle of an open field, and he's got the sheriff look or the bandit look. So that's what I'm imagining. They're very ominous because people know what they are when they appear.
I love that concept so much because as you were talking about it, I have this image in my head of like, this is what mine looks like, and if they're the ones who are kind of responsible for grabbing these bad notes, I have this idea in my head that they're using some kind of like either a bagpipe or some other type of wind instrument to literally suck the bad notes from the air and from the people,
like they're there to create silence by taking away that music, which that would be a cool way to do it.
Daniel, that is exactly what we need to what needs to have happen, right?
Like that's what they're scary. They're about silence,
Right? No, and that's how they're around, because all of a sudden that band music that stops. You hear gets muffled and silenced out, and then everyone turns their head, and it's like, oh shit, because they're literally absorbing the music around them as they walk through. As a visual standpoint, and as a scene stealer, holy shit, that's amazing.
I do love that, but I also don't want it to be like too much like the Desolation Angels that we had in the
oh right.
Did they also steal music?
They had a Field of Silence,
yeah.
Oh damn it. Okay. Well, in musical settings, that's kind of like the go-to. So I suppose that's not. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's what they're not trying to destroy the music; they're trying to steal it.
What if it's less like silence and more like they're providing like a strict structure, like they're composers essentially, that sort of bends the will of musicians to theirs, so that others are like forced to play a certain way, like they can't improvise anymore.
I don't know. I really like the idea of silence. Like I know that we did that with the Angel, but I feel like that was totally different contextually.
Yeah, I think that I agree. Like this is.
I want to roll with what you're saying though. Yeah. So I'm wondering if maybe when they take the music away, that is what it becomes. Like
yes,
maybe their instrument of weaponry, like it transforms it into that.
That's what I was thinking as well, is that as they come into the room, it does like there's a muffling or a deafening or a silence that happens. And then
it plays symphony music of that kind.
Right, exactly. And it's absorbing it and then like putting it back out. It's like recontextualizing it. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I love that. Yeah, I think that worked. The other question I had for you guys though is like, I was thinking kind of like the Matrix, where when Agent Smith shows up, he takes someone else's body. And so it's super creepy because you don't know where he might pop in. And I'm picturing like a scene where they're in a bar in an outpost, and there's suddenly the noise we just described, like silence, and then the symphony music. No one has arrived in the room, but someone triggered them to arrive, and so someone of your compatriots becomes the symphony agent. And so like then you're like, oh crap. So either I don't know if they've literally visually changed into what they look like, or if their mannerisms change, and that's what does it. I just think that'd be an interesting thing if they have an aspect of possession as well instead of just teleportation.
This sounds a lot like the that game you ran, that one shot Western.
Oh right, yeah.
Where there was like a card game in a saloon at the start, and one of the people in the bar ended up being like a villain.
Yeah.
I think we can take that and maybe just give it as like a job class. Like maybe this one kind of like ignored or even like jeered or upon like person in town. Maybe he's like the old coot character, and then all of a sudden that old coot like transforms into this thing. And Daniel, are you interested in this idea that it can be anyone, or is it like, are you okay with it being like, hey, this is a sheriff, this is a person who has already given themselves to this thing, so at any time it can be possessed?
I could see it going either way. Like that, my thoughts were either these are things that this is an established class of people that teleport in because the right music is played,
Mhm.
or if the right music is played, you become a vessel for them, and then they do what they need to do through you. Because they don't, in that case, they wouldn't really have. They'd be similar to the bad note possession. It's almost like the interim is using the bad note possession as a tool, right? So we're talking about the music producers having co-opted alien technology. So that's one way I could see them as having co-opted it, is that they've created their own sheriffs who they transmit through music. So I guess as I'm saying that, I'm leaning more towards possession.
Yeah, I do like that idea, and I could see it like visually almost like flickering back and forth between the original person and the sheriff figure, which is
like
kind of disturbing.
See it. Yeah.
Okay. This is very demonic possession, and I love that. You know what I mean? Okay. Hold on. Can we have it so you can implant that into someone else? So maybe there's some nefarious group that's like, okay, we're gonna give you something, or we're gonna implant something, a tune in you, the devil's tune, as it were, that once you play this note or once you play this thing, you become possessed without your knowledge, or something like that. And then they kind of coax them into playing that type of music or something. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, I mean, if it's unwitting, then it would have to be done that way. If it is willing, then it's like there are people who are co-conspirators with the Inner Rim who deliberately play the notes. So I think it's one way or the other.
I think you can kind of have it both ways, but because I like the idea that there are agents out there who are tricking people into like becoming unwitting victims of possession in some way.
I think it could work either way.
Yeah. Courtney, what do you think? You think we can work with this?
I think so, definitely. Yeah, I like the idea a lot.
Mm-hmm. Just from a aesthetic standpoint, we don't necessarily have to have that music be completely silenced. By the way, I'm thinking that what might happen is, when you're, actually all of you would know this. Well, you guys anyways, when you're like mixing music in an editor or in something like that, and you like tone one part of the music down and you ramp up the other part, that's basically what's like. I like to see that as it's not silencing it completely, but it's like all of a sudden the volume goes way down, and then you hear this kind of crescendo happen from the other side as well. I know that I'm like beating a dead horse here, but I just love that. I just love the imagery of it so much. It's so cool. I want to make sure that we nail that
group too, because like Courtney's groups, like, or no, it was your group. Who did the clerics?
I did the clerics.
Courtney did.
You did the clerics. Okay, so I could see them playing and setting up whatever duel is happening, and then the music really dims. Everyone starts looking around to see what's happening, and then it starts to rise as this, symphony music.
Yes,
kind of that dim, and then everyone freaks out.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that my group is like trying to fight that in some way, because they very much believe in like the sanctity of the duel, and like nobody should interfere with that. So if some like highfalutin sheriff type comes in from the Inner Rim, they're like, whoa, we cannot have this bullshit happening.
Devil goes down the Georgia battle right there and then, because then they try to play against the symphony music, right? Because they were like master musicians, so you've got this like clash of musicians immediately.
Is that always the case? I mean, I imagine that, again, it really depends on the group. I would imagine that some of them would see that and then immediately stop playing and be like, okay, I know we're supposed to care about the sanctity, but the sheriff's here. Oh my God. And then the other, on the Outer Rim, it's definitely more like, screw you. We're playing, as much as we can.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just mean like in the Outer Rim in particular.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Oh man. Okay. Yeah. This is fun. I'm liking this. Besides like they're kind of like very like music absorption thing, do they have a visually distinct look? Is that something that we want to put on them, or do we want to have it so it's just sonic? Like they have a sonic signature, but not necessarily a signature look.
I'm definitely picturing like wide brims, like black hat, and dark trench coat type thing.
I'm also thinking incredibly spindly and like gaunt and tall, because of course you got to have that. I mean, that's where my brain goes.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind. Like I was saying, creepy, bald. I have written down creepy, bald, skinny CIA agents, but like the Western
yeah, they're tall men.
translation.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, like the Western translation would be like wide brim, dark clothing, thin, tall, gray.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Okay. Is there something that we can tie to, like, is there some kind of fashion statement that we can give them a look that like says that's a conductor right there? Oh wait, are they conductors, Daniel?
I think so. I mean, I saw them as if they're symphonists. I think like the symphonist is like the person who conducts the symphony, right?
Yeah.
I think that's it. Because with their ability to like to basically force their own music, like that's what the conductors do. They're like making sure that their music that they wave the wand at is like being right. Yeah. Okay. And so they have the baton as their kind of signature weapon, so to speak, right? And then that's great. Okay, cool.
Oh, and I imagine when they show up that like tapping of their conductor's baton is like what creates that initial quiet.
Yep. And
that'd be amazing.
Now I'm just going deep dive on this particular character design because I love it so much. I like to think that when they walk, it sounds like a metronome. Like click.
Oh, a tick tock. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, like that's what their spurs are essentially.
Ooh, yes. Yeah. Oh man. See, this is so much fun when you get into like the nitty gritty of like very specific world building stuff. I love it. All right. With our factions and the reconciliation of the twist out of the way, it's time to roll into our main quest line, literally, because we're going to roll some dice and figure out some random elements that we're going to be focusing on. So the theme that we're going to be rolling for today is going to be hope, always a good one. The thing that we're going to be focusing on within this theme of hope within the quest is going to be a moment of defeat. So we've got a moment of defeat with the theme of hope within our musical setting. Now, how can we incorporate all three of our factions within this kind of main story quest? What are our first thoughts here?
Something about the one of those cleric backup bands was defeated at some point by a conductor, and they're trying to undo their loss in some way.
I like that. So this is the group that we're focusing on. This it's a group of these defeated I'm going to keep calling them diegetists because that's the name that I came up with. But they're the cleric / referees of this setting. Now, in my mind, I have to imagine that some of them are ex-cleric diegeticists and some of them are current, or maybe this is like a struggling.
Round them up.
What's that?
Does he need to go round up his old compatriots?
Oh, literally getting the band back together. Of course. Great place to start for sure. And I think that when it comes to hope, I love this idea that they're all trying to find their way. And maybe it's kind of like the theme is losing one's faith or questioning one's faith. But instead of faith here, it's obviously like your ability or your music or something like that. Yeah.
And maybe one of the band members is now like a leader in your like greaser faction. Rob.
Oh yeah.
So like the members who have already gotten together have to like talk their way into this group to be able to see their former bandmate.
This archetypal character is like the bad boy, of course, you know. Oh yeah, that's good.
Hey, what I really love about this too is I already have an idea of what the main character is, like the one who has lost everything and is trying to put the band back together.
Is it Sam Elliott? Because that's what I'm picturing.
They seem to have a soft power approach. Like there's some kind of humility to them because they've got to convince everyone of who they were and what's in them. more so, and remind them of their glory days. That's what I'm kind of getting. Almost like an Obi-Wan kind of feel, you know?
All right. One thing that I would like to make sure that we hit on as well, make sure we get some romance and some love. I know that the main theme is supposed to be hope, but considering that one of the tenets is like we got to have a lot of romance, we need some romantic interest in there. And we've got to also add in the conductors. So I love that, like, we've got some stuff going on. What do we want to do with it?
What if the leader of that greaser faction is the old flame of the band leader?
Ooh,
I'm actually picturing
it's Olivia Newton-John from Grease.
No, I was picturing Madeline Kahn from Blazing Saddles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You have like such a stronger Western aesthetic in your head than I do.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking like I said, Olivia Newton-John from Grease, where she's got like the big poofy hair and like the black leather pants and stuff like that.
Could like merge them together into one.
Maybe she looked like Madeline Kahn before, and then like this is her new look when she's joined the Space Greasers.
Oh wow! So Sam Elliott and Madeline Kahn, I think that's fucking perfect. Now that I'm looking at them,
I think the age difference is a little bit much, but I can get behind it. You know,
has it mattered in Hollywood?
Yeah, but we're better than Hollywood, Daniel.
I mean, but it's Sam Elliott, so he's got this old world charm, you know.
Okay.
She's pretty old. So there you go.
I think she passed away. Like,
yeah. So there you go.
Ways back. Yeah.
Pick an age that matches with Sam Elliott. He's still
all right.
alive.
Fine.
She's dead. You know.
By the way, why does Sam Elliott look the same age for the last like 40
I was just
years?
wondering that too. It's like, wait, like, has he ever been young?
I know that we're completely diverging from this main quest line, but like even way back in like Roadhouse, which is an 80s movie, he still looks as old as he does in like The Big Lebowski and like now, basically. Like when he was in Parks and Rec. It's the same guy. You want to talk about like Keanu Reeves being a vampire? Like, nah, Sam Elliott's the real vampire here.
Oh, he was very attractive in Roadhouse.
Yeah. No, he's just an attractive man.
He's still, yeah.
Yeah, come on.
But,
I mean, you don't become a Hollywood actor by being like schlubby and ugly, unless you're like John C. Reilly, but you know. All right. We can look up Sam Elliott pictures on our own time. We got a podcast and a main quest line that we got.
Sorry, my bad.
I'm picturing Sam Elliott from Parks and Rec.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So what's the main quest line? Obviously, the antagonist is the conductor, right? That's the obvious bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a matter of we've got to get the band back together because why? The conductor's back?
And you're trying to exact revenge? He's stolen music from them. That's what he does. They steal music. He's stolen the band's song, like what makes them what they are. And for some reason, Sam Elliott needs that song back to do something.
So let's figure out why. And then I think we have our quest and then we're good. And also we got to add in some kind of ridiculous set piece here. Like we need something like with a lot of oomph, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these people care about the sanctity of performance and the towns they come from, right?
Right.
So is their society or their town in danger without this music?
Oh, like
it's lawless, yeah.
Or like the civilized guys from the Upper Rim are going to come in and like turn it into some mining town or something like that.
Yeah, because they've lost their inspiration. They've lost their music.
Mm-hmm.
So he's seeing that and he's down in his luck and he's like, no, he has a moment of truth and says, I have to do something about it because nobody else will.
Mm.
Okay. Can we also
that's
have
the romantic part of it too, in a way, like looking back to what you were.
Well, I was going to say that that's also the romantic part of it because maybe it's their love that finally, you know, like reignites something that is similar but new. So it's not about like capturing what you had. It's about making something new with things that have changed. You know, that's where the hope really comes from.
He sees the moment of truth as he sees an old picture of her like in whatever bar and remembers who they were. And he's like, oh no, this is something that can be now. And so he goes to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
She's the hope for the situation.
That worries me just a little bit because you're kind of commodifying her as a presence in some ways. I like the idea that
I mean, if I think back to someone I loved and I've lost them, I don't think it's a commodification of them. I think it's I'm inspired by what we had, you know.
Or like a sort of like we were stronger together kind of vibe.
Okay, yeah. See, that I can get behind. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay. Yeah, that I can get behind. Apologies.
Oh, maybe what happened is they had a kid together and the conductor did something to that kid.
Okay.
And that specific conductor is coming back. And that's why he wants to like get back together and defeat this person.
Plot twist. The kid has adopted the conductor way, and it's not the original conductor coming back because he's dead. It's the child.
There we go. There we go. One twist. And maybe that's why they get back together is like, oh, they hear that this conductor is coming back. But it's actually the child who maybe the conductor kidnapped or something like that.
You got to turn him to the good side or whatever. Maybe
there we go.
I don't know.
There we go. Through the power of love, Daniel.
And music.
Yes.
Musical
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's it. 100%. We nailed it. Okay. Is that it? Did we kill it so easily and so quickly? That was great.
I think so.
I think that's pretty solid. Do we want to bring in our like twist elements at all?
Not at all. No, I think making this an anime would be a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's like what we discussed with the twist seems like the largest adventure.
Yeah.
You know,
like why everybody's there in the first place.
Yeah, this is cool because it's a micro one. You know, like
for sure. All right. I think that this has been definitely one of my favorite settings that we've done in a while. So I think it's because all the twists and turns and also my love of musicals really came out. The main twist, as I continue to say, Daniel being a fan of musicals, like we've been friends for going on 8 years now, Daniel, and I've never known that about you.
Wow, so. I didn't know that you guys didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we can have a musical night from now on. So with that all out of the way, a big thanks again to our friend and patron Jay for suggesting this setting idea. And remember that if you want to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com. And you can click on a link, follow some instructions, and within no time, well, there's some time, we will be building your world on the podcast. If you want to follow us on social media, we are over on Twitter at Let's World Build. If you want to come join our Discord or give us money on Patreon, or just because you want the Patreon only episodes, obviously, there's links for both of those in the description of this episode. This has been another brilliant episode of World Build with us. Remember that we love you very much, and we're going to get through this together. Until next week.